All right. Welcome back everyone dito sa Deep Dive with Richard Haydarian, ang pinakabalahurang podcast sa bansa. Kasama naman natin isa sa mga pinakamabait na mga guests natin ever. Kanina lang, we were of course with the greatest General Torre, na sabi ng tawag sa kanya, most corrupt police general dahil he went after the Dutertes and Quiboloys, and I was very disappointed kasi wala pa rin siyang binibigyan ng coordinates kay Harry Roque. Thank you very much, Justice Carpio, for making time for us. Na-miss ka namin last week.
Thank you also, Richard, for having me tonight.
I know you have been super busy, Justice, and thank you so much for making time for us. You have been doing a lot. You've been distributing yung mga maps, yung mga mapa na pinapakita talaga na talagang malalim yung ating yung mga karapatan, malalim yung kasaysayan ng ating karapatan sa West Philippine Sea. You've been giving lectures right and left. So mabuhay ka, Justice. But before tayo pupunta sa West Philippine Sea, foreign policy, Donald Trump issues, um, pag-usapan natin yung mga latest developments at home. Unang-una, Justice Carpio, nagkaroon na tayo ng oral arguments ngayon sa Supreme Court, right? On the PhilHealth issue, among others. Could you give a summary at saka your interpretation and understanding of the direction of the debate so far sa Supreme Court? And what are you expecting in terms of potential decisions and all? To the degree that you can.
Well, yes, I'm happy that the right questions were asked in the last oral argument kahapon. Uh, the the issue here is the PhilHealth funds are composed of contributions of the members. Second, they are funds raised through taxation for a specific purpose to fund the PhilHealth and implement its program. So, yung funds na yon, of course, they cannot touch the contributions of the members because those are the funds of the members. But yung tax portion, there is a provision in the Constitution that money raised through taxation for a special purpose can be used only for that purpose. It cannot be used for any other purpose. And I'm happy that that was emphasized by the Justice Xavier. He said you cannot use PhilHealth funds for any other purpose. Of course, she's correct. No? That's in the Constitution. That's very clear. Ang ginawa ng Department of Foreign Affairs, Secretary Recto, he transferred almost 60 billion pesos of PhilHealth funds to the National Treasury to be used for various projects. Hindi pwede yon kasi special fund yon. Talagang hindi pwede. Secondly, hindi rin siya pwede mag-transfer. Nakalagay sa saligang batas, no law shall be passed authorizing the transfer of any appropriations. That's a general rule. Hindi nga pwede mag-transfer dahil yung uh, yung General Appropriations Act is a law. You have to follow that law. Hindi pwede i-authorize yung Secretary of Finance to transfer appropriations. There's only one exception. The President can transfer savings within the executive branch. Pero hindi naman ito savings. Savings, pag natapos mo na, there is a project to build a bridge, 100 million, natapos mo yung bridge, may sobra pa 20 million, yun ang pwede mo ilipat kasi savings yon. Ito hindi to savings, kulang pang ang pera ng PhilHealth. Ang dami pang mga babayaran ng PhilHealth, unpaid hospital bills ng PhilHealth, at saka hindi pa covered lahat, konti lang. Magkano lang ang kino-cover sa, for example, dialysis, so if you give birth, no, konting-konti lang, siguro mga 10%, 20% lang. So talagang hindi pwede gamitin 'yon. So talagang klaro naman it's very clear now na yun talagang issue.
Right. And again, obviously we don't want to preempt, but do you think there's a good chance that the Court will come on the right side of this argument? I mean, the reason I'm doing that is because in the US, for instance, there are all of this legal analysis before the Supreme Court comes up with a final decision. So to the degree that we can, based on what you know, Justice, and your familiarity with that august institution, are you cautiously optimistic that things will end on the right side of the equation?
Yes, I'm very optimistic because the Constitution is very clear. They cannot get away from it. There are two very important provisions of the Constitution that are being violated. Hindi talaga pwede. Ang ginawa nila talagang it clearly violates the Constitution, and I don't think the Supreme Court or any Supreme Court can tolerate it.
Um, Now, going back to other issues that could involve the Supreme Court, anong status nung the whole forthwith debate so far? First, politically speaking, has Cheese changed his position? Is Senate just sleeping on this? Is this eventually going to be decided by the Supreme Court, or everyone's just going to wait this out until the next Congress? And kasi medyo ano eh, it's creating a lot of constitutional questions. Like, bakit the Senate is not acting on something that is obviously means you have to immediately respond within a reasonable framework.
Well, the issue now is in the Supreme Court. There's a petition filed. So I think this will be resolved by the Supreme Court. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng forthwith? Is that as soon as possible or as soon as reasonably possible or immediately? Yung during the impeachment of Estrada and Corona, it's between 1 month to 2 months. Ang sabi ni Chis, sa ano na, after the SONA na, that means 5 months yan. So mukhang matagal masyado. So I'm happy that it has reached the Supreme Court. Talagang madi-decide yan.
Um, and your sense is what, Justice Carp? You think public pressure could force the hand? Kasi we had Senator Trillanes here on this show and sabi niya, ang problema talaga kay Cheese is ipit yung kamay niya dahil sobrang fragile yung support base niya and he could lose the presidency entirely if he presses the wrong button. What do you think?
Well, I think the issue will be resolved by the Supreme Court soon, no? And the I think that 5 months the delay is too much, it's too long. I think that will be violative of the Constitution already. Pwede naman, katulad nga sinabi ko, they can do a lot of preparatory work between now and the SONA, no? Ang daming pwedeng gawin that will satisfy the public and will satisfy also the requirement of forthwith. They don't have to organize as a impeachment court and conduct trial kasi ang dami pang preparatory work eh. They will revise their impeachment rules. Ang dami nilang magagawa talaga. So if they can only start with that, the public will accept it.
Personally, Justice, do you think that there should be some sort of a hindi naman unity or united front? Do you think that progressives, liberals, and even administration and some in the Congress who may not see eye to eye on other issues, should they kind of come together on this issue and collectively put pressure?
Well, it's happening now. There's a move in the Supreme Court. There are many senators who are talking now, even uh, former senators. I myself have been talking about it. So I think it's in the public consciousness, and plus the fact that it's already in the Supreme Court. I think that's the major movement there.
Right. And again, hindi pa nag-start yung debates and all. Are you also cautiously optimistic that the Supreme Court will, will land on the right side of this debate if ever it gets down to the Supreme Court? Also in terms of timing, because the timing is very important. There's a sense na medyo bumibilis ng Supreme Court in responding to some of the big issues. Am I correct? Or am I being overly optimistic here?
Well, I think they're starting to respond uh, in a more timely manner now because talagang these are critical times, no? I hope that they will act on time, and I have faith that they will act on time.
And is that logistical and operational possible? Hindi kayo ma-overwhelm yung Supreme Court with all of these issues? I mean, from a human side of things, considering how complicated some of these issues are, hindi kaya unfair to expect the Supreme Court to act too fast?
Well, kaya nila yan. The issues are not that difficult. Even if they are difficult, kaya nila. They are very competent. They can handle it.
And Justice, to what degree is this important in terms of Well, hindi naman reputational damage control, but I mean, let's be honest, Justice, throughout the years, medyo na-sideline yung Supreme Court. I mean, during Duterte, direct assault on the institution. Some of the decisions of the Supreme Court raised eyebrows, including on the Marcos burial issue. Do you think there's a historic chance here for the Supreme Court to um, sorry, claw back some of its, I won't say lost legitimacy, but at least to regain more support and hearts and minds of people? Kasi usually ang baba ng approval ratings ng mga Supreme Court justices eh. I don't think it's just only ignorance about the role of the Supreme Court Chief Justice, right? I think something
Well,
maybe profound is at play here.
well, historically, the Supreme Court has always had a low rating uh, because they're not very active in the public eye, no. So I think it's still the same. It's not that uh, compared to previous years, previous during previous presidencies, maybe just a little bit lower lang. Uh, but I think they will rise to the occasion. They're very conscious of their role anyway.
Um, and then Justice, going back to this, since our last conversation about the mechanics of the impeachment, a couple of senatorial candidates have begun to realize, parang nag-dawn upon them na, wait lang, baka maging senator judge na ako. In fact, there was a meme of yung picture ni Digong at saka, I don't know, na naka-robe and all of that. And suddenly people were saying, my goodness, imagine Robin Hood Padilla. And then next thing you know, even Willie Revilla, man, biglang nagsisink in sa kanya. Wait lang, baka kailangan ko pag-aralan yan. What to what degree should the candidates for the Senate, especially those who are doing not too bad in the surveys, to what degree do you think they should really do a proper catch up? I mean, and familiarize themselves with the minutiae and legalist aspects of this, or do you think at the end of the day it's just a question of conscience and it's just doing what you have to do?
Well, if I were them, I would not be discussing the impeachment case because they could be accused of bias. Because if you form an opinion now, even before hearing the evidence, before trial, then it wouldn't look good. So, tama yung sinasabi nila that I cannot discuss that fully because if I win, I will be one of the judges. No, so better for them to keep away from the subject matter.
So basically you are with yung essentially how BAM tried to stand on this issue. In that sense, Justice, what do you have to say with the types of Amy Marcos or openly saying they will fight it tooth and nail? Robin Hood Padilla saying, alam nyo na, ano nang gagawin natin dyan. So you already have a situation whereby a couple of senators are unabashedly and brazenly already saying where they're gonna, when the chips fall, where they're gonna stand on the issue. So ang sinasabi mo is that hindi to eye for an eye, that you have to have that procedural impartiality at the core of your approach as a senatorial?
Well, because you will be both a senator and a judge, you have to be faithful to both, no? So I think better if I were them, I better not to discuss it in detail. Just mention that you will be fair, you will consider all the evidence, but to say that Sarah is now guilty or not guilty, that would be prejudgment already.
See, isn't there a way to at least say na at least nakita natin ngayon sa dami-dami ng mga expose at hearings na nakakabahala ito, pero of course titignan pa natin yung actual evidence, something like that. Is there a way to acknowledge what has been already exposed? It's not like the Quadcom hearings and everything that has come out is just, a bunch of political marites, right? What is the way
Yeah,
to acknowledge what has already been exposed while upholding procedural impartiality? Is there a way to square that circle or to harmonize that?
well, you can say in general that you've also watched the Quadcom, the committee hearings, and you would be studying the issues more, no? When the when you become a member of the impeachment court. So what you should avoid is say guilty or not guilty. I mean, before hearing everything.
Okay, so basically you can say I'm not gonna pass a final verdict or judgment. Gagawin pa na, we are not there yet. There should be a trial, but so far what I've seen has been parang troubling enough for us to take this seriously, something like that.
Pwede
Yeah,
rin.
pwede rin
You
ganun.
can,
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
Exactly. And the reason I'm saying that is because I mean you saw the big debate, right? Nagalit sila Trillanes among others. Even there were supporters of I think Kiko among others were quite disappointed with this idea. Now you cannot say it's just a political issue, right? You cannot trivialize it. You're talking about sunod-sunod na hearings. You're talking about Senator De Lima, risking it all to share her story, among other things. Now, I want to go back also to another development we're seeing. So recently we had the CIDG chief of PNP filing cases against. Oh, by the way, sorry, one more on the Supreme Court. What do you have to say, Justice, about the SARA team taking their impeachment case to the Supreme Court, challenging it and saying that the due process was not upheld? Sorry, that's an important question. I wanted to ask you, pala.
well, of course, she has the right to bring that issue to the Supreme Court, but I think she will fail there because there were at least one third of the members of the House who signed. So that the moment that there is one third, that means there will be no more committee hearings. The articles of impeachment will go direct to the Senate. This happened during the time of President Estrada. So it will be very difficult for the Supreme Court to say that the articles of impeachment is void. Very difficult.
So why would they do that? Ano, pampagulo lang
Well,
or I mean, the reason
well,
I'm asking that, to be honest, behind the scenes, people say, oh, dahil marami dyan appointee ni Digong, they're hoping na they could leverage that, residual influence. Again, of course, that's an allegation uh, that has to be substantiated. And then there's another argument na baka nagpapanik sila Sara and they're just trying to do any pusit moves to prevent this from going to the Senate and moving ahead.
well, I think the Council of SARA wants to explore everything, to leave no stone unturned. That's why probably they're there now in the Supreme Court questioning the validity of the articles of impeachment. But that is their right, but I don't think they will succeed.
I see. And you expect a swift response from Supreme Court to just say parang I'm not gonna even dignify it, something like that. Yung parang katulad ng ginawa ng mga courts sa US na parang yung citizenship, yung natural born citizenship right.
Birthright. Yeah.
Parang sabi yung birthright exactly sabi ng sa federal
Mm.
court that parang I can't even believe that a lawyer cleared this na parang it's is
Mm.
parang sa sobrang walang kakwenta-kwenta yung argument niya. Do you expect the Supreme Court to swiftly also strike that down?
I think that birthright citizenship, that's really in the Constitution. It's very clear. And there has been decisions already before. So itong kay Sara, because there are some factual issues involved. That's the other thing there, no? Because the Supreme Court is not a trier of facts. So baka sabihin nila, we cannot go into the factual circumstances. We just have to rely on the articles of impeachment signed by one third, no? So yun ang that's the hurdle of the lawyers of Sara will have to overcome because factual yung ni-raise nila eh. Yun ang problema dyan.
Right. And do you think the SARA team has a proper set of legal minds in it or ano to? Do they have anyone quite competent enough na dapat mag-worry yung kabila in a sense?
Well, that's part if you're fighting for a very big cause, no? So that's what they're doing.
This is a very high profile case also, I'm sure they can leverage everything. Now, Justice, what do you think about this so speaking of CIDG kanina, like I asked Janitor about this na bakit niya kinasuhan si Duterte. This is in light of Duterte's latest tirade na he jokingly said, baka kailangan patayin natin yung mga 15 na senador para maging maluwang. I mean, and kinasuhan siya. He filed a case against Duterte on that. I mean, my point was very simple. Bakit ngayon pa lang? It's not like Duterte has not been making these outrageous statements. Forget about his 6 years in office. Talk about the last 2 years, 3 years, right? Including against the president and others. What do you think about that? And then, and also NBI's case against SARA. May ano ba yan? May legs ba tong mga ganitong kaso? Do you think they have a chance, or do you think at least it's important to file them and remind these people na no matter how powerful they cannot just go around and making bad jokes and bad threats, if not assassination threats?
Well, yung kay Sarah was not a joke because it was uh, it was in the dead of the night, in the midnight, that she gave that rant. So yun, I think grave threats will stand, no? The charge of grave threats, but I don't think inciting to sedition will prosper. Maybe grave threats. Yung kay Digong naman, the former president, uh, I think it's not too easy to make out a grave threat issue there. It was really just done in bad taste. But we don't know how the judge would rule. But for me, the one of Sara is serious because hindi joke yun eh. Makita mo naman seryoso yun. Yung kay, yung kay Digong mukhang patawa pa yun, no?
But I mean,
So that's a big difference.
okay, so what can you? So we should just tolerate that, like a former
No,
president.
well, tama yun. Tama yung ginawa nila to test exactly what is the legal significance of that statement of Digong, no? So that we will be guided.
And a little bit trickier, obviously, kinasuhan din ni General Torre yung isang vlogger na pro Duterte na kung saan pinapalabas niya na patay na siya or mamamatay na si Torre dahil nasa hospital. I mean, we saw very nasty attacks against General Torre last year when he was trying to hunt down Kibuloy. But mukhang sabi niya, napuno na siya kasi yung family daw niya affected sa mga ganyan, yung mga parang death threats ba to or yung mga like creating like false impression na mamatay na siya or ganun. What do you think about that? Shouldn't public officials just accept that this is part of their job, or do you think it's important to draw the line? And if it's important to draw the line, how do we make sure this doesn't get out of control and every official filing a cyber libel against any, well, to be honest, idiot out there, forget about the trolls, making some sort of an incendiary or below the belt meme, let's just say.
Well, the public official can file a cybercrime case for libel. I think they should, just to put these people on the defensive, so they will moderate their statements. But the burden there is on the public official because malice will have to be established by the public official that it was the libelous statement was malicious, no? So there's a, unlike private party where malice is presumed, this one, it's the reverse. If you're a public official, the burden is on you to prove malice.
Um, but nevertheless, Justice, what do you think about, kasi ang pagkaalam ko ngayon is parang there's a circular or kind of advisory from the Supreme Court to the lower courts na when it comes to cyber libel issues, as much as possible avoid penalties na imprisonment, etc., and rather go for something similar to a civil suit. Is that true? Is there a kind of an
Yeah, yeah. There is
internal decriminalization, if I can put it that way, or implicit
yeah, there's a, because the penalty is either fine or imprisonment. So the the guide court is just impose a fine.
basically like a civil suit na rin siya, di ba? In that sense. Kasi nakakatakot eh,
Yes.
yung pwede kang makulong, di ba? Especially if, let's say, this is a powerful politician, baka how, can influence the courts or yung fiscal. I mean, and there's this term, right? The process is the punishment, right? Just going through the grueling process of, my goodness, yung mga cyber libel na yan, that could have a very dangerous chilling effect. But in general, Justice, where do you stand on things? Because you, as a public official, got a lot of very nasty attacks during the Duterte era, right? Because of your advocacy in West Philippines and all of that. But you were very stoic about it. I mean, do you have an advice to other officials na, ano yun, parang not worth my saliva or time? Ganun ba yung dapat? Deadma lang, ganun?
Well, I'm in favor of decriminalizing libel and imposing a higher penalty or fine. No, that's my position to decriminalize libel, but uh, the 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 fine should be higher, so that should balance it.
Um, my problem with that issue is like, what if ang laki ng bayad sa mga walang iyang bayaran na troll and the fine is just so small na say, ay, yun lang pala, okay lang yan. Like,
Yeah, that's
change
why
the
they
business
have to
model.
increase the fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, they have to
exactly.
increase the fine.
What fines are we looking at right now? 50,000, 100,000. Like yung kay Lauren Baduy was an interesting case, 'di ba? Parang there was a conscious effort to structure the legal case yung kay Atom, 'di ba?
Yeah.
Early on, to make it really a civil suit-ish case. Is that probably the model forward? And is 1 to 2 million pesos really it's a thing what that should be the number around the right number to really give some of these people who are just gonna calculate, well, kung ang bayad sa akin ay 1 million, 10,000 lang pa. Okay lang yan. Go for it, diba? You could create very perverse, right, patterns of entrepreneurial calculation.
Well, the penalty should be sufficient. The fine should be sufficient enough to discourage such acts in the future, and it should be able to compensate the injured person somehow to vindicate his good name. No, so it cannot be just a few thousand pesos because it has to be a little
Moral
bit
injury, di ba?
substantial.
Moral injury, yung emotional scarring, di ba? Siyempre,
Yes.
yung pamilya mo, akala niya, totoo yung meme, patay ka pala, tapos na, baka ma-heart attack pa or something like that. I mean, those are serious injuries, moral injuries. I mean, very injurious yung mga ganitong, mga, so, um, again, I'm asking you that, di ba? Kasi naalala ko yung sinabi mo, Justice, few years ago, di ba? Na parang ingat-ingat tayo in terms of advocating for things kasi baka i-weaponize laban sa atin if there's a change in administration, which is never impossible, right? Kaya always you have that, di ba? Wag excited masyado, wag excited masyado, di ba? Although, I'm very confident to push na ano yung mga batas sa mga traidor ay ipitin talaga. Going back to this, Justice Carpenter. I want to talk a little bit about the Senate race and election. Kiko is not doing too bad. Bam is quite competitive. But one concern that is emerging right now is baka this is really a fight over the last 1 or 2 slots, and that you could have a very kind of a, hindi naman Hannibal Lecter, but a very kind of a vicious dynamic later on. Kasi as we speak, I know for a fact na marami sa mga admin slate ay medyo nagka-cannibalize na yata. Like, kasi alam nila mahigpit na tong labanan. You have many independents fighting over, but uh, you led this one sambayan, and we can have a long conversation about the difficulties you face. Shouldn't there be some sort of a minimum level of agglomeration or coalition building among some of these candidates? We had people like Heidi Mendoza on this show. Never mind people like Franz Castro and others who were saying, parang hindi nagre-reach out yung iba. And it looks like kanya-kanyang diskarte na yan. Like parang isa yung dalawa na lang yung chance na makapasok. Might as well just focus. What do you think about that? I mean, should Lenny just raise the hands of Kiko and Bam lang? I mean, is that really the way forward? Shouldn't there be a much more unified front, even if realistically, baka at the end, it's really about 1 or 2 slots? Kasi ang naglalaban dyan, Nancy Binay, Camille Villar, even Amy Marcos medyo alanganin, Bato, I think Tolentino is almost out of contention for some people I'm talking to, including people from the admin. And then it's going to be Abalos, Bam, Kiko, and 1 or 2 other people. So yun yung talagang 8 or 9 people are fighting over the last 1 or 2 slots, right? It's going to be extremely, extremely competitive.
Yeah, it looks like maybe the last two or three slots will be up for grabs. Uh, well, in our case, we listed seven, originally eight of senators as our that we recommend to the public, but they do not form one slate of any party. They come from different parties, so it's difficult for them to campaign together because they belong to different parties. So uh, so they normally campaign in one or two or threes, but not as a complete slate.
What are the lessons we learned from the 2022 elections in terms of your struggles as one sambayan? And what is your assessment? Have we learned the right lessons from there? Or ang usapan lang dito, this is just survival. Let's just swim and keep our head above, the water, and then pag-usapan na natin later. Kasi there's also this bigger question, Justice. Again, this is a political question, but does the pink opposition need to, I mean, however you define it, kailangan ba na at least isa sa kanila makapasok para maging relevant ang genuine opposition for 2028 race? Or as long as they keep it competitive, that may be just good enough to keep the flame and get the momentum going for a much more open competitive race down the road in 2028?
Well, I think the administration will not make a sweep of the 12 slots. No, I think there will be candidates from the other parties that can enter. No, not not the. I don't think there will be a complete sweep by any group here. So uh, maybe eight to nine might come from the administration. No?
I want to ask you this question, Justice. I mean, I don't want to be elitist about this or but how do you feel about this fact that you have a couple of people running for Senate? It looks like they don't even bother to check the job description. And they're even confident. Yung isa nga, di ba, tinanong, anong batas ang gusto mo? Sabi, hindi, ikaw, anong batas ang gusto mo? Sabihin mo sa akin. Parang galit pa siya na tinanong siya. Parang demanding pa siya. Parang, basta andun naman yung puso ko. I mean, last time I checked, it cannot be just all heart. You have to have basic proficiency and competency, right? I mean, in short,
Well,
how many
I
more
think
Robin Hood
that
Padilla
that's
do you need?
the sad part of it. We need to really educate our voters. You know, they don't want to be educated. They feel that that's too low for them. Uh, but if we continue with this, then competent people will not be in the Senate. You will have comedians and entertainers there. So it's sad. I mean, I hope we can do something about that. The I think media has a lot of responsibility to 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 shape the thinking of the public because they were able to do it in the 1950s, 1960s, and even in the early 70s. But uh, after martial law, uh, after the first elections in martial law, the the uh, the entertainers started to come in. No, so that's and I've always said that if only ABS-CBN educated the public or taught them the value of press freedom, that it has to be defended by the public, maybe the public would have uh, rallied behind ABS-CBN, but they went into a ratings war. I mean, whatever uh, slapstick, those kind of those uh, their
Wait lang.
their
Justice, bakit
their shows. So
nag-disappear ka?
really, there no moral lesson at all in their shows. No, so well, they can only blame themselves for that, for not teaching the public that the public will have to defend them when if they are threatened.
Justice, parang na-disappear ka sa screen ko. Are you seeing yourself? Parang may nagalit yata sa sinabi mo, ah.
I will check. No.
Yeah, you disappeared suddenly. Baka nagalit yata yung ABS-CBN sa'yo or someone na, na nag-work ngayon sa Zoom. While we're hoping that justice can come back, but I mean, let's make this work. This is the first time this happened. Nag-disappear yung visuals.
Yeah,
Maybe
I'll check. No,
sorry about that. Just no, don't
we
worry
can
about it.
continue.
Actually, just yeah, we can continue with
I'll
this. We can go on with this. Ako, Justice Carpio. I mean, medyo conflicted talaga ako sa issue na yan eh. Kasi sa isang banda, as someone who has worked in ABS, GMA, now TV51, is like, naintindihan ko rin yung, at the end of the day, it's a business, right? At the same time, a part of me is also blaming myself. Like, you taught at UP, I've taught in UP at Manila Lasal. Oh, we have been educators, but I was saying, sana mas maaga ako nag-start mag-podcast na ganito. Sana ginawa natin ito 10, 15 years ago. And sana there are like 200 versions of me, right? Doing this na sabay-sabay. Although I'm sure there are many great people out there, in vernacular, in Davao, in, I don't know, Zamboanga, Baguio, doing this. Wala akong basta ang point ko is feeling ko minsan nagkakulang din tayo. And I would say nagkakulang din tayo in a sense that instead of reaching out to people, nagkaroon ng maraming let me educate you mindset, which I think was very problematic and talagang lumabas ito nung elections nung 2022 and it really backfired. So for me, there's a way to push for meritocracy without being elitist. And part of that is a certain degree of compassion. A part of that is a certain degree of listening tour, openness, 'di ba? I think kulang tayo ng listening tour eh. Usually in lecture mode tayo eh. Yeah, you're back, Justice. Good to have you back on Earth. Um, biglang nag-hologram ka, Justice. Eh. The lesson there, huwag mong lightin ng ABS-CBN. No, no, but, diba, Justice, you've been kind. We had other guests who talagang nagalit sa ABS-CBN, di ba? We had si Mr. Nye with us, right? Who used to work in ABS-CBN and then left abroad when the TV Patrol entertainment and all of that sensationalization started. So I think you're being even too kind with your criticism. But ang point ko is that andito na nga tayo, na-damage talaga yung sabihin natin yung chances natin to instill the kind of critical thinking we want. Kanina, General Torre was talking about yung PISA rankings na parang second to the last tayo in terms of reading comprehension. I mean, that tells you your educational system is already in dire straits. Your major media channels who could somehow compensate or complement your educational institution, they have been in rating wars. So that really leaves us, right, as the people who have some sort of influence, some degree of platform and voice to do our job. And that's why nagpapasalamat ako, Justice Carpio, sa'yo, na with all your stature, you're making time for lowly podcasters like Richard Hidarian, right? So Justice, isn't it also dapat we have been doing this earlier and more of us, more of people of your stature also doing this perhaps. Although of course you're the best, you're the greatest, but maybe more people, ex-justices, top level officials should come and engage, and maybe a lot of people similar to me from the academe. What about that aspect, Justice? Although it
yeah,
wasn't enough, obviously, it's still the education institution and media that have a lot of influence, given the
yeah. I think we should. You see this in the U.S. A lot of professors. They have their own podcasts and very, very interesting, very educational. I think we should have more of this. Well, you have people like Shelo Magno who can really discuss economics and dissect the budget. We need more of that. And who very fluent in English and in Filipino. So I
vernacular.
think, yeah, we need those kind of people to balance, no, because the ABS-CBN type of shows lack really substance, no.
Yes. Now let's go to the last part of our discussion, Justice. Thank you again so much for making time. And before baka ma-disappear ka na naman bigla, I mean, that was like really weird. Like, wait, where is Justice? Like, medyo parang yung Space Jam yung kinuha ng alien yung sila Michael Jordan. Biglang, parang ganun nangyari.
Beam,
Yeah, pero,
you're being beamed
oh,
up.
exactly. Pero may boses ka, Richard! Tapos umakyat ka, Justice, doon sa Space Jam ship na alien ship. Um, Last part, let's talk about our favorite guy, Donald Trump. Of course, Donald Trump. Ayan na, excited na yung mga MAGA people. Marami tayong followers na Pinoy na MAGA na hindi ko maintindihan. Um, Obviously, Justice Carpio, Donald Trump has been very predictably disruptive. I mean, he's so predictable. No? I mean, it's total chaos and it's totally unsurprising. It's just a question of how bad it has been, diba? Nevertheless, there's this state of mind. So, for instance, in Greenland, Greenland is a very interesting case, right? So, marami daw sa Greenland ngayon ay natutuwa dahil finally pinag-usapan sila and they're trying to use the Donald Trump card to actually negotiate separation and total independence from Denmark. Kasi inis na inis sila sa Denmark, di ba? I've been in Greenland. I talked to, actually, apparently it's correct pala to call them Inuit also. They're part of the bigger Inuit community. So they don't want to be part of US or Canada because they know the Inuit communities didn't do very well there and they know US is bigger bully. But they want to use US to bully Denmark to get independence for themselves. But that's a very dangerous game, right? Justice, to think that you can play big players against each other for yourself. And my fear is maybe Greenland will eventually play into Trump's hands or whatever new imperialist mindset. The reason I'm asking that is because I think the Greenland case has implication for other countries, including like the Philippines, na ipit din among big powers. Last time we talked, you were very adamant, Justice. Actually, last 2, 3 times we have been talking about Trump. You were very adamant na hindi talaga maaasahan ng US. At the same time, you have Marco Rubio really going extra mile, meeting Secretary Manalo on the sidelines of. So, what I'm saying are two things basically, Justice. On one hand, is it delusional for smaller countries to think that they can use the Trump card to get another concession from another power, another country? And then at the same time, aren't we a bit too dismissive of efforts by Marco Rubio and some of these top officials to actually treat the Philippines? And kumbaga, ang nakikita ko dito is one way to argue this in favor of Trump, although I'm not necessarily in favor of Trump, is but to say, okay, transatlantic alliance is in total trouble, as we saw in the Munich Security Conference, but trans-Pacific alliances are not in super bad shape. Ishiba was in White House and had great talk with Trump. Modi was in White House. They had good conversation. Mukhang the Indians might get away with the immigration problem a little bit more than what some were fearing. And then Rubio meeting Manalo, and then Rubio making sure yung mga disruptions to the aid, no, yung US aid ay hindi maapektuhan yung defense aid to Taiwan and the Philippines. So it's 300 plus million for Philippines dollars, $800 million for Taiwan. So can't you say that actually maybe Trump may be a disaster on so many levels, but siguro we are in a better or are, you see what I'm trying to do here, Jessica? I'm trying to be fair here, but parang a part of me thinks, are we like class A in a sinking Titanic ship? Parang ganon.
Well, the problem is if you have a president like Trump who is willing to give up territory of Ukraine to pacify an invader, I mean, so that means he's a person who will not follow the principles of the United Nations, and that can apply to us also. So it becomes very transactional because it's not principled. That's my problem with that. So when he said that, when, for example, the U.S. voted against the General Assembly resolution,
Voted
I
with
mean,
Russia. We voted with
voted with
Russia. I mean,
Russia.
this is crazy. I mean, this is like what? This is the
Yeah, we
craziest
voted
record.
with Russia, with Belarus, with China, and with Iran. So I mean,
Nag-axis ang US. Like,
so
this is
in
the
other
weirdest.
words, it's not a principled position. And I think what he was trying to do was to rattle Ukraine, so Ukraine will agree to the minerals rare earth mineral agreement, and that's exactly what happened because Ukraine agreed already to sign the rare earth agreement, minerals agreement with the U.S. So you have two countries. You have Russia trying to get the minerals of Ukraine, and you have the U.S. trying to get also the same minerals. So it's so transactional. So you wouldn't be comfortable with an ally like that.
But
That's the big
even
problem.
worse than transactional, right? One running theory is that this is just about Donald Trump's personal penchant for Kremlin and Putin and personal animus against Ukraine. Because Zelensky, medyo may history sila ni Digong, di ba? From the whole Hunter Biden situation, from the whole... So, one reading, and I'm talking about people like Farid Zakaria, right? One of the most influential foreign policy thinkers in the US, openly saying that this looks even worse than transaction. It looks like this is just a personal weird thing that Trump really likes Putin and really passionately hates Zelensky. In fact, one of the Ukrainian American advisors of Giuliani and Trump said Trump passionately hates Zelensky because Zelensky kept on standing up to him. So we're not only talking about the transactional president, we're talking about the president who acts based on just personal whims. I mean, it's crazy. Praising Russia, I had a great conversation with Putin, amazing history, and then called Zelensky a dictator. I mean, I don't see the art of the deal there. I see something else there. Am I reading too much into this? And because that has implications, right? Because the argument would be, well, but BBM doesn't have that kind of bad history with Trump. If anything, the Marcoses and Trumps have good history, and that unlike in the case of Ukraine, US doesn't feel threatened by Russia, but China is really a threat to US hegemony or global leadership. So maybe, Richard, you're comparing apples and oranges.
Well, we will find out because what's happening now is you have Russia occupying areas of Donbass where there are minerals, and the U.S. trying to get also part of those minerals, whether in Donbass or in areas that's still occupied by Ukraine. So where will it end? I mean, uh, will Trump say, "Okay, Vladimir, you have your part, I have my part, so let's sign a peace agreement now." So at the end of the day, you have the two nuclear armed countries dividing the wealth of Ukraine among the between themselves. So that's imperialism. That's plain and simple imperialism. So where what will happen to the world? What is the lesson for a country like the Philippines? Can we trust the U.S.? I mean, so what if Trump will talk to Xi? Let's divide the South China Sea. Let's divide the Pacific. Where will that leave us? So that's the big problem there. So uh, it's it's a good. I hope what Trump will do is okay. I will now side with Ukraine. We will drive away the Russians. At least there you see a principle. But if now that I have my piece of the action, Vladimir, you have your piece of the action. Let's have peace now.
Do you see a kind of a Yalta Tehran conference style, like the three big boys coming together and dividing the world, meaning Xi Jinping
Well,
and Putin and
that's
Trump?
what uh, the analysts are saying that that's the ultimate objective of Trump, Yalta 2.0. But
Yeah.
where will that leave us? Because China will say, okay, South China Sea is mine.
Um,
Then what will happen to us? In that Yalta 2.0, of course, uh, Russia will insist that the South China Sea belongs to China. So where will that leave us? That's the big problem there, because it's
Di ba?
only
Ano, that's
transactional.
it. Province of China, yung favorite. We will, so BBM will be the governor of the Philippine province. Like, oh my goodness. So baka Sara Duterte was ahead of curve. Maybe when she tried to learn whatever, I don't know what that was, that
Speak
Mandarin over there.
Mandarin.
I think Sarah knows something we don't know. Baka Justice, we should brush up na our Mandarin, even if it's as a Sarah level of Mandarin.